Welcome back, College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast. I'm Brandon Chadich. I'm your host. Hope everyone had a good week, good Valentine's Day. Unfortunately, I don't think Chris Holtmann had a very good Valentine's Day. That's going to highlight our podcast today. Thoughts go out to him and his family. He's been a part of the Buckeye community for 7 years. If you don't know, he just got fired from Ohio State, opening up a lot of conversation on who the new coach will be. What's going to happen to Chris Holtmann? We'll dive into that a little bit. Hopefully, hopefully everything ends up working out for him. But we're going to talk about what led to this, why it happened so early, just a month before March. Buckeyes trending towards not making the tournament. Obviously, it seems. Then, of course, we'll talk about some of the names that have been thrown out already going crazy in the social media world. We're going to talk about some of the results, of course. We'll talk about those quickly. Some big outcomes in the ACC really shaking things up. North Carolina falling, Virginia falling. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about some bracket stuff. We're going to talk about locks, bubble watch, our top 16 seeds. This is important because tomorrow at 12:30, they're going to release the top 16 seeds, 1 through 4, the 1 through 4 seeds, all four of them. This will be the first time this year that they've done it, and we'll see how accurate our top 16 is. We think it'll be very close. And of course, we'll talk about some of the big games this weekend, our Sweet 16 games to watch, as we always do. We have a loaded slate tomorrow, a lot of ranked on ranked matchups. While you're here, smash the like button, subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Comment your feelings. Comment if you'd be interested in a live show. We're thinking of starting something like that now that this has grown far enough. We want to start out with the big news out of the Big Ten. Start about the talk about the possible chain reaction that may occur in the Chris Holtmann firing. Thanks again for tuning in. Let's dive right into it. So let's first talk about the impact of this firing on Chris Holtmann. People have been saying throughout the social media verse that the Ohio State basketball program doesn't have the money to compete with these other programs in terms of getting a high level coach because they're a football school. They have one of the best football programs in the nation. Quite frankly, this is just false. I've been seeing it everywhere. That's not true. They're probably a top 15 basketball job, maybe top 20. They're in the AP poll of coaching jobs in college basketball. This is a good job for any big level coach looking to take the next step. So let's briefly talk about Chris Holtmann and what his career turned out to be. He got the job out of Butler. He had an outstanding career at Butler. He won 70 and 31, made the NCAA tournament all 3 of his years. Then Holtmann got the job at Ohio State, replacing Thad Matta. They wanted to move on from Thad Matta, get someone new. Interesting enough, Thad Matta is now at Butler, and Butler's trending towards making the NCAA tournament. We have them in the field right now, and Ohio State's not even in consideration. So since moving on to Ohio State, Holtmann's gone 137 and 86. He's made the tournament in 4 of the 5 years. It's not including this year, which he was going to miss. And the tournament was canceled in 2020, which he was actually going to make it. Probably be 5 or 6 seed in 2020. I can't remember. I think it was 5. But he has never made it past the round of 32. Remember that big upset against Oral Roberts, where they were a 2 seed, had a lot of talent that year, but just couldn't get it done in the tournament. Past 2 years are what ended up being Holtmann's downfall in his tenure. Last year, Ohio State went 16 and 19 overall, 5 and 15 in the Big Ten. This year, they started off the year 10 and 1. We had them ranked in our rankings at like 26th at one point, I think. They're now 4 and 10 in the Big Ten, making it 14 and 11 record, second to last, only ahead of Michigan, who's also spiraling. Um, just just not good enough for Ohio State, and we'll talk about Michigan here in a second. But with this firing, Jake Diebler, you might remember John Diebler, great Ohio State basketball player. His brother Jake Diebler will take over as the interim head coach as of starting on Sunday, which we'll talk about that game. Gene Smith, longtime AD at Ohio State. This is last year, passing over the torch. This is kind of his last big move. We saw the press conference where he was kind of in tears. He did say earlier in the year that they were going to stick with Holtmann, but plans change. I mean, it's just not working out right now. But the question that entered my mind, I'm sure entered everyone's mind right away, is just why would you do it so early? It seems a little just, I mean, what, just wait a month, let Holtmann figure it out instead of making it a big storyline. But then the more I think about it, the more it's a good move. They now have the advantage over Michigan, who is most likely going to fire Jawan Howard. I'd be very surprised if they don't. Indiana is one of the bigger, maybe probably top 10 coaching jobs in college basketball. Indiana's really struggled this year. A lot of concern on whether they're going to fire Mike Woodson, I would say it's more likely than not. And then Louisville definitely expected to make a change from Kenny Payne after this year. So it seems like Ohio State's trying to get their first choice in there. It seems they maybe have already made a choice on who they want it to be. They want to do it before Indiana or Michigan were to make a move. And of course, I mean, obviously Michigan and Indiana in conference, they want that leverage. Louisville just down the road from Ohio State, about 3 hours. Um, so it seems they have a guy, they want to get him, they want to scoop him up before Michigan, Indiana, or Louisville do. So this is probably just trying to get a head start on building the program over there, building it back up. So let's talk about some of the candidates. The first name that pops into my head, I mean I've heard some outrageous things, but we're going to talk about probably more coaches than we should. First choice that pops into my head is obviously Dusty May out of Florida Atlantic. He would be the man I would be on the phone with right now if I'm Gene Smith trying to make a hire. Maybe there's been a lot of talk about Dusty May going to Indiana, and quite frankly, Indiana is probably a better coaching job than Ohio State. I mean, it's Indiana, it's Hoosiers, it's basketball school. But that there's been a lot of talk of him going to Indiana, but they haven't made the change of Mike Woodson. Mike Woodson very well may still be the coach there next year. He led them to a 4 seed last year. Mike Woodson did, and they had Trace Jackson Davis, Jalen Hood-Schifino, but they won one game and then ended up losing in the round of 32 to Miami. But Dusty May, I mean, a young guy, took FAU to the Final Four last year, has FAU ranked right now, should be comfortably in the tournament again. Young, young guy, energetic, good looking guy, very professional. He's done a great job. I would be very shocked if they at least don't give Dusty May a phone call. I think he's the best choice right now. It's just whether he's going to go to FA or excuse me, go from FAU to Indiana or not. So let's move on to some of the other names why they may or may not get the coaching job. Greg McDermott has been thrown out. I've been seeing some crazy stuff on Twitter of the odds of who's going to be the next coach. Greg McDermott was right up there at the top. I don't know if he would jump ship from Creighton to Ohio State. He has built that program from the ground, and I mean his son went there, all-time leading scorer there. I don't know if I could see Greg McDermott leaving. I think he may die at Creighton. He seems to love it there. He's got it good there. We'll see about that one. Don't have too many details on that Greg McDermott one. Another one that's brought up was Lamont Paris. Lamont Paris, the coach at South Carolina. He's probably the front runner for coach of the year right now. I would think they're 21-4. Um, had a rough year last year, obviously rebuilding it this year. Probably a 5 seed right now. We have South Carolina. So Lamont Paris, he is from Ohio originally, has some Midwest ties. So that's interesting to look at there. As soon as they fired Chris Holtmann, Lamont Paris, maybe trying to prove a little something, trying to I hear South Carolina's supposed to give him a huge extension, but if if they he can still jump ship. He can still jump ship to Ohio State. It's probably open to the idea, but as soon as this happened, South Carolina went to Auburn and lost by 40. So not great for Lamont Paris there, but he's still done a fantastic job. So we'll see there. Sean Miller, just down the road from Ohio State at Xavier in Cincinnati. Sean Miller in his second stint at Xavier right now. He's kind of been all over. We'll see. Xavier, give Sean Miller credit for what he's done with Xavier this year. Xavier, they're still in the bubble. They're not in right now. They're on the outside looking in, but all the injuries, all the players he lost to still have a chance. It's pretty impressive. He's a great basketball coach. I wouldn't look past it there. There were talks of Nate Oates coming from Alabama, kind of the same situation as Dusty May, kind of just rebuilt that program, took him to the number 1 overall seed last year, offensive firepower. He's got a similar status at Alabama, though. Ohio State's a little bit better of a coaching job than Alabama, basketball wise. Obviously not football wise, but he built something great there. He's also a young, energetic, professional guy. I don't think I could see him jumping ship from Alabama. We'll see. We'll see. Now let's move on to who I quite frankly believe is going to be. I have that weird gut feeling that it's going to be Mick Cronin as the coach at Ohio State next year. He's proven to be great. He had a really rough start this year. He's rebuilding it though. UCLA is playing well. They just beat Colorado last night. They're like 9-5 in the Pac-12 right now. He is a very good basketball coach. He was at Cincinnati for a while. He's got Ohio ties. I have that gut feeling. I think it's going to be Mick Cronin. I'm not 100% sure, but that Mick Cronin could also end up at Indiana. I think whoever doesn't end up in Indiana between Dusty May and Mick Cronin, that would probably be my guess as of right now to who goes to Ohio State. But obviously, I've been proven wrong before. We'll see. Few other names thrown out there. Eric Musselman from Arkansas, rough year this year. We know how lovable of a guy he is. He is absolutely loved at Arkansas, though. He is a legend around that area. He's an energetic guy. Took his shirt off last year when they beat Kansas. He's proven he can recruit. I don't know if I see him leaving Arkansas though. I mean, Bud Walton, that environment, it's incredible. I don't think I see him leaving Arkansas just because of the legend he is there. Porter Mosier, now at Oklahoma, that Loyola Chicago legend. I I don't know if they'll offer him the job. I mean, he's done a great job with Oklahoma. He's won everywhere he goes. But I don't know. Why go from Oklahoma to Ohio State, even if they did call? I think they're very similar. He's got it good there. He's loved. He's building that program right now. I don't think he'd want to leave and restart. I think Porter Moser will stay at Oklahoma. And then some of the other ones going around. Let's talk about Rick Pitino. I don't think the new AD coming into Ohio State would bring in Rick Pitino, who's obviously a great basketball coach. He is an incredible basketball coach, but I mean, with his reputation, I don't think that's the first big move a new AD can make. Don't think I see that happening. I wouldn't hate it. Think he's a great coach, but I mean, we heard he was never going to coach in the Big East again, and here he is at St. John's. We'll see what happens there. I heard some talk about Jay Wright coming out of retirement. That's not going to happen. Why would you leave Villanova retire? I get you miss it, the whole Urban Meyer thing, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to stay at as Fox as an analyst. Then Jake Diebler, as we mentioned, he's taken over. What happens if they beat Purdue tonight? What happens if they win the Big Ten tournament, end up in March Madness? Probably not going to happen. They got a lot of talent though. Ohio State's got a lot of talent. Don't count it out. They got a chance. Those are there's been other names flying around. Those are some of the ones that I'm just going to talk about. Some of the big names, some of the who I think it's going to be. If I had to put money on it, I would probably say Dusty May or Mick Cronin, but who knows? I've been wrong before. So let's talk about what led to this. Ohio State went to number 20, Wisconsin. This will start our results section. And they did get beat 62-54. Wisconsin had lost four in a row. They were losing to everyone, and then they beat Ohio State. I mean, it's still Wisconsin. They're probably a 4 seed right now. Ended up being Chris Holtmann's last game, unfortunately for him. But Wisconsin, as we mentioned, broke that losing streak. But it was more of just, hey, everyone can beat them except us right now for Ohio State. So just time to move on. Wish all the best for Chris Holtmann. Let's move around the nation. Let's start with that ranked unranked matchup we already talked about, which was number 11 South Carolina visiting number 13 Auburn. Auburn just handed it to them 101-61. It's not even close. Jalen Williams, 23 points, 5 of 7 for three. For Auburn, Jonai Broom, 21 points. He also hit 4 threes. South Carolina, they've now they beat Kentucky and Tennessee, and now they've lost at Alabama by 27 and at Auburn by 40. See similar playing styles in Alabama and Auburn. Both can really score the ball. Auburn's defense, I think, is a little better than Alabama's, but kind of interesting stuff going on there from South Carolina. Really, really don't know how good they are yet. I mean, obviously they're good. 21-4. They're up to 11 in the AP poll. We'll see. All right, let's move into the ACC. We promised we're going to talk about it. We have a lot of key results. North Carolina went into Syracuse, got beat 79-86. North Carolina, number 7 in the AP poll. They've now lost 3 of 5. Not looking good. Syracuse shot 62.5%. Talked a lot about North Carolina's defense and how good it's been. Wasn't good in this one. Judah Mintz and JJ Starling are the guys for Syracuse. They both went off, combined for 48 points, 25 and 23. And Syracuse really only played 6 guys. They played 7, but the 7th guy played like 5 minutes. So very interesting there. So let's move on. Pitt went into Virginia and beat Virginia. Pitt uh, kind of picking up some wins that they need to do to get themselves back in that conversation. They just won at Duke. Now they're winning at Virginia. These are big wins. Pitt won the game 74-63. It's just one of those unstoppable Blake Hinson games. We saw him do it against Duke where he just couldn't miss. He had 27 points, 11 and 19 shooting. Pitt, maybe the most inconsistent team in the country, but this is one of those teams where if they were to squeeze into an 11 seed and you got to play them as a 6 seed, just like we saw last year, yikes, I would not be too happy about that one. Moving on, Miami visited Clemson, and Clemson beat them 77-60, but the game was a lot closer than this. Miami led 54-48. Yes, do the math. They went on a 29-6 run to end the game. just as their season has gone. Miami, bad year, happens. Let's move on to what this leads the ACC standings at. North Carolina still in first, but they only are in first in the win column, not in the loss column. They're 11-3. Duke is 10-3, so they have that game on them, and they also have that head-to-head matchup. But what does that mean? North Carolina has to go at Duke later in the year, so Duke might squeeze themselves into somehow winning the ACC this year. Virginia is in third, 10-4. They're one game behind UNC and half a game behind Duke. Wake Forest is 8-5. They're in fourth, and then Clemson, Pitt, NC State, and Florida State are all 7-6, with Syracuse behind them at 7-7. We're going to talk a lot about the bubble, and we're going to discuss a little bit of discuss a little bit of the ACC. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let's move into the Big East. Number 4 Marquette went into Butler and beat them 78-72. This is 8 wins in a row for Marquette, strictly because of Tyler Kolek. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. There's been a lot of talk about Tristan Newton being a Big East Player of the Year. Obviously, Kolek he won it last year, was preseason favorite this year. I think it's back in Tyler Kolek's hands. He's been unstoppable ever since he's fully healthy back from that injury. He's been incredible. Oso Ighodaro, 17 points, 10 rebounds. This Marquette team's playing like a 1 or 2 seed finally, and they're a team to mess with come March. Butler, they had the opportunity to get even deeper get to improve their seeding, we'll say, because they are in the tournament as of right now. We have them as I think a 10 seed. They're pretty good. Thad Matta done a good job there. So a bubble game out of the Big East was St. John's visiting Providence. Providence won the game 75-72, kind of a must win for both teams. St. John's led by 5 at the half, but let it slip away again, just like they did against Marquette earlier. Josh Oduro, 28 points. He's been on a tear. And guess what? He had a kid. Congratulations to Josh Oduro. He's been on a tear on the basketball court, and he's also now a family man. Good for him. Also in the Big East, this game was on Wednesday, though. It was Xavier visiting Seton Hall. We mentioned on the last podcast another just must win game for both teams, and Seton Hall just dominated 88-70. Huge win there for Seton Hall. Let's move into the Big 12, where number 10 Iowa State is playing like one of the best teams in the country right now. They beat Cincinnati at Cincinnati 68-59. They're tied atop of the Big 12 right now with Houston. Curtis Jones, he had a good game off the bench for Iowa State. They won 6 of 7 in the Big 12. That lone loss was at Baylor, where they hit the bank shot to win, but it was called off. Loss at Baylor by 2. This team is rolling right now. Have them up to a 2 seed. Good for Iowa State. We thought they might have been computer frauds earlier in the year. They are not. This team is legit. They are a great defensive team. Ranked on ranked matchup was number 25 Oklahoma visiting number 12 Baylor. Baylor beat them 79-62. It was just all Baylor from the get-go, and it was because of Jaden Nunn. He went off 27 points, 6 and 9 from 3. Baylor is playing like one of the best teams in the country as well. The Big 12, I mean, we thought it was going to be Houston and Kansas. It's still Houston, and then it's probably Iowa State and Baylor. I know Baylor lost at Kansas, but they held with them. Kansas has looked vulnerable, losing to West Virginia, losing to at Kansas State. They've looked vulnerable, but Baylor's just getting better and better. Scott Drew's done an incredible job over there. Good for them. Let's talk about the SEC. Ole Miss went into Kentucky. Kentucky finally broke their 3-game home losing streak, beat them 75-63. Ole Miss just not quite talented enough to match up with Kentucky. Kentucky actually held Ole Miss to 63 points, as you'll notice when we mentioned the score. Kind of rare for this Kentucky team. Antonio Reeves, he led with 15 points. A good win for Kentucky to get back on track. Oh, Texas A&M. Texas A&M went to Vanderbilt after Texas A&M just beat Tennessee, proved their worth, that they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. Then you go to Vanderbilt and you lose, the worst team in the SEC. Yikes. 74-73 on a crazy last-second shot by Ezra Manyan. Hopefully I'm not pronouncing that right. I don't think the broadcasters could even pronounce it right. But he hit a little floater at the end of the game. Looked a lot of controversy. Might have been a travel. It was electric when it went in. The win over Tennessee, then the loss to Vanderbilt just kind of cancel each other out. I would probably rather beat Tennessee than lose to Vanderbilt than lose to Tennessee and beat Vanderbilt. It at least shows that you can beat a good team. I would much rather have the quad 1A win, may I remind you. They're still in the tournament as of right now. They're one of our last 4 buys. We'll get into that in a second. Moving into the Mountain West, got to talk about the Mountain West. New Mexico beat Nevada at Nevada 83-82. Jamal Mashburn hit a huge three for New Mexico at the end of the game to just kind of steal one from Nevada. Nevada had a chance to really make their impact and get in. But Jamal Mashburn also led New Mexico 17 points. Good win for New Mexico. Most interesting game maybe I've ever seen. Colorado State visited San Diego State and led 44-30 at the half. They lost the game 55-71. Do the math. 44-55. 11 points in the second half for Colorado State went ice cold. This was one of the strangest outcomes I've ever seen. Jadon Ledee, the San Diego State star, doubled Colorado State's score himself in the second half. He had 22 points in the second half to Colorado State's 11. Finished the game with 27. Very interesting game to watch there. Let's move on to the Missouri Valley, where unfortunately we got to talk about number 23 Indiana State taking a loss at home to Illinois State 80-67. This was their first game inside the top 25 since that Larry Bird team 1979, and they lose it unfortunately to a sub 500 Illinois State team. At large hopes took a huge hit with this one. They're still close. They're close. I think if they run the table and maybe lose the conference championship to Drake, it'd probably be 50-50. We'll see how they end up. That's it. That's it for the results. We're gonna talk about some of our let's dive into some March Madness content here. Let's talk about some of the teams, some of the top four teams, some of the bracketology. Let's dive into all of it, some of the locks, some of the bubble teams. Let's start with the top four seeds, or 1 through 4 seeds, excuse me, if that makes sense. We're saying this because at 12:30 tomorrow, Saturday, on CBS, they will be releasing the 1 through 4 seeds. So we're just going to kind of compare and contrast. As the 1 seeds, we do have Purdue, UConn, Houston, and Arizona. You know what we're going to do? We're going to pull up a graphic for those watching on YouTube. We do have a graphic already pulled up. Let's get into it right here. So here's our graphic right now. It is currently Purdue as the 1 seed, UConn as the second 1 seed, Houston, then Arizona is the fourth 1 seed as of right now. Next up, we have Marquette as our first 2 seed, kind of climbing up the seed list right now. Tennessee, Iowa State in as a 2 seed, and then North Carolina as the final 2 seed. So that means we have Kansas as a 3 seed. Kansas a 3 seed right now, Baylor a 3 seed, Auburn and Alabama. And then the 4 seeds we have Duke, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Creighton. In the hunt, we still have Dayton, BYU, San Diego State, and we still have South Carolina as the last 5 seed. At some point, 21-4 record. Playing in the SEC has to mean something. So that's what we got right now. Now let's just go into the overall bracketology. Here it is. Take a look. This is what we have right now. Now we are going to change this. We're going to post it on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook tomorrow. We're going to post it after the first 4 teams or first 4 seeds are revealed, excuse me. So this is our current bracketology. Take a look at it. We're going to go conference by conference, who's in, who's not. So let's do that right now. Let's talk about some locks, some bubble watch, a little bit of everything. We're going to start in the ACC. Start in the ACC with our locks. North Carolina is a lock. They're going to be in the tournament. Duke is also a lock. They're going to be in the tournament. Should be in Clemson. Clemson should be in. We have them. We also have percentages listed, as you can see. We have them a 90% chance to get in. Virginia, 75% chance to get in. They should be in. Wake Forest, we have a 60% chance. Pitt, 35% chance. They picked up some big wins. Their strength of record and BPI are still not as good as they should be. Syracuse, NC State, and Miami all 20% chance. Not looking good. Maybe even a little too generous on some of these. Moving to the Big Ten, locks, Purdue, obviously. Wisconsin is still a lock. Illinois is a lock now. Should be in Michigan State and Northwestern, right in that 75% chance range to get in. They both should be in. I know Northwestern just lost at Rutgers last night, but they should still be in. Nebraska, we gave a 60% chance. They're 52nd in the net right now. They're close. Minnesota and Maryland, maybe giving some false hope here. 15% chance. Both have some home games. We made this yesterday before that Purdue game. I figured if Minnesota went in and beat Purdue, still have a chance, and they almost did. It was actually a closer game than you expect. Let's move on to the Big 12, the deepest conference. The locks, Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, Baylor. You will be seeing all of them in March. Should be in BYU, Texas Tech, Oklahoma. All three of those teams you should be in. And then there's a lot of bubble teams, not as much as the Big East, which we'll talk about next. But TCU and Texas, we gave a 65% chance to get in. Got a lot of questions on TCU. They're 3-6 in quad one. They beat Houston, which really helps. We'll see about TCU going forward. Not as high as in the net as you'd think, but Texas, same boat. Cincinnati, we gave a 45% chance, and then Kansas State is slowly falling. They're in the low 70s at the net, 25% chance. We'll see. Thought after that win against Kansas that they might sneak in, but it's not looking like it right now. So let's talk about the Big East. Look at all those bubble teams. UConn and Marquette, they're in 100% chance. Creighton, you could justify as a lock. I gave them a 95% chance because we rounded to the nearest 5%. They were like a 97% chance. They're going to be in. Creighton will end up in the tournament. On the bubble, Butler is the best bubble team in this conference. Who would have ever thought? 65% chance to get in. Providence and Seton Hall both 40% chance to get in. Now we do have Providence in our field right now, but they're gonna have to hold off to they're one of our last buys. St. John's and Villanova both 25% with Xavier as a 15% chance. I said they needed that win over Seton Hall. They might have flip-flopped with Seton Hall, but that loss might have just about killed Sean Miller's chances. Let's move into the Mountain West. There's no locks. San Diego State, you could justify as a lock. We have them 95%. Another one of those like 97% teams. Utah State and Colorado State are also right there. They could be there 90%. Got a little bit of comments on New Mexico. New Mexico 75%. And I say this because they have 5 losses and they have a difficult schedule remaining. Can't exactly remember who it's again. I know they go to Boise State, to Utah State. I think they go to San Diego State tonight, excuse me, and Utah State and Boise State. They got a rough little schedule ahead, so that's why I would kind of see it hard to believe that they would squeeze in a 9-10 loss Mountain West team. So I think they get in, but it's closer than you think. Boise State, we have at 70%, kind of in the same boat. They already have 8 losses, yet they've actually picked up better wins in conference play than New Mexico. In Nevada, we have 60% right now. We have them as one of our first 4 teams. I think they got one of the best schedules remaining to stay in the tournament, though. Pac-12, rough conference this year. Arizona is a lock. They're going to be in. We have them as a 1 seed, as we mentioned. Washington State, we have them as should be in. Washington State, Kyle Smith, Miles Rice, good for them, rooting for this team. 75% chance to be in as long as something drastic doesn't happen. Now that, as we mentioned, this was made yesterday before Utah just lost at USC, which you can't do. We had them at 70%. That probably drops to 50, 55%. Colorado, 45%. They just lost at UCLA. They're also going to drop probably to the 30% range. Oregon, 15%. Watch out for UCLA. That's all I'm going to say. They're probably not an at-large candidate right now, but you never know. They might win the Pac-12 the way they're playing right now. Arizona's not going to have that much to play for in the Pac-12 tournament, quite frankly, other than the Pac-12 tournament championship, which is important to some. UCLA, they're going to have something to play for. The SEC, we have 3 locks. Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn are all locks. Should be in South Carolina, Kentucky, 90%. They're almost to a lock. If they win this weekend, they'll be locks. Florida, 75%. Texas A&M, 75%. We have Florida as a 9 seed, Texas A&M as a 10 seed. Mississippi State and Ole Miss, 60%. Have both of them in the tournament also. Let's move into all the other conferences. Dayton, they should be in 95%. Have them as a 5 seed right now. Florida Atlantic also has done enough. They've held off a lot of teams in overtime. They should be in March right now, 90%. St. Mary's, who would have thought we'd ever been saying that? They're in the AP poll. They're in the top 20 of the AP poll. 75% chance to get in at large if they were to lose to Gonzaga in the WCC tournament, which is where we have Gonzaga next. 45% chance. They're close. I find the committee having a hard time letting them in if they were to lose at St. Mary's and only have 2 quad 1 wins. One being at Kentucky, which is a great one, as we know, and then their only other quad 1 opportunity other than St. Mary's is at San Francisco. Not all quad 1 wins are created equal, and that would be one of them on the lower end. Memphis, once again, had it yesterday. Before We had before they played at North Texas, we had them 40%. That loss just drops them. They're not even in our considered on the bubble right now. Probably 25% chance they're probably gonna have to win the tournament. Indiana State down to 35% chance. Now, if they run the table, they can climb this up to. You don't want to put it on the committee to take a mid-major team over a high major team that has a lot of losses, such as like a Villanova. They'll always seem to take Villanova. Not that it's right, but 35%. Grand Canyon, we have it 30%. I fully expect Grand Canyon to win the WAC tournament. I think they're by far the best team, and I actually think they're the best mid-major automatic qualifier team. We'll call them, not like the Florida Atlantic, Dayton. But they're my team this year as of now. We do have Drake at 25%. I don't think they're going to get it done, and McNeese at 20%. Just not enough quality wins there. So that's it. That's going to end our bubble discussion throughout the conferences. So next, of course, we got to talk about it. Our Sweet 16 games to watch. So tonight, New Mexico does play at San Diego State. Tune into that. It's at 10 o'clock on FS1. We're not going to count that because it's just in a couple of hours. So we're going to start on Saturday. Give you some of the KenPom lines, get a little head start on your betting advice. 12 o'clock, Texas Tech visits Iowa State, number 10 team in the nation. This game's on ESPN Plus. Can you believe that? Two teams at the top of the Big 12. Iowa State favored by 7 via KenPom. Texas Tech coming off that huge win versus Kansas. Iowa State, we say, have just been rolling. I think it's kind of a hangover for Texas Tech. I think Iowa State covers this 7 for sure. Texas A&M at 12 o'clock also visits number 15 Alabama. This game's on ESPN. Alabama favored by 10 via KenPom. This might be a first to 100 sort of game. Wade Taylor, Mark Sears might combine for about 80 points. You never know. Still think I'll take Alabama to cover 10 in this game, which is a lot of points, but Texas A&M coming off a loss. Alabama's offensive firepower, though. No, what? Take it back. Texas A&M plus 10. I think Texas A&M covers coming off that loss. Also at 12 o'clock, Wake Forest visits number 21 Virginia. This game's on ESPN2. Virginia favored by 1 via KenPom. Wake Forest needs a win for March hopes. They got to get it done here. We have them as a first 4 team as of right now. Virginia needs a win for their conference hopes, so it's kind of back and forth. I do think Virginia frustrates them, and I think they win the game. At 12 o'clock, TCU visits Kansas State, both teams on the bubble. Kansas State farther down. They need it more than TCU does. This game's on ESPNU, and TCU is favored by 1 via KenPom. I think TCU goes in and gets the job done. They need it. Kansas State has just been fading as of late. I think TCU wins the game. At 12:30 on Fox, number 17 Creighton visits Butler. Creighton favored by 1 via KenPom. Butler won at Creighton. Remember that. That did happen. We'll see. This is going to be a fun matchup to watch. Butler needs it bad. I think Creighton goes in and gets it done, though. I think Creighton's starting to play a little bit better. We mentioned on the last podcast they're going through Kalkbrenner now, which is what they needed to do. I think they'll finally figure it out in this one. Baylor Sharman had a triple-double this last game. I think Creighton gets the job done. So that's at 12:30. Creighton. Also at 12:30, just a reminder, is the CBS. They're releasing the top 16 teams, so tune into that. Following that will be Texas at number 3 Houston, which we fully expect Houston to be a 1 seed when they release those top 16. This game's on CBS. Following that, Houston favored by 11 via KenPom. This game went to overtime the first game. Remember that? Texas needs it pretty bad. 11 points is a lot of points. I think Texas covers the 11 points, but we'll see. At 2 o'clock on ESPN, number 9 Duke visits Florida State. Duke favored by 6. And Duke stay at the top of the ACC, pick up that win that ties them up at the top. North Carolina does play tomorrow, so North Carolina plays Virginia Tech, so they have a chance to remain at the top. But Duke needs this for their hopes. I think Duke wins, and I think Duke covers the 6. Talked a little bit about how sometimes an injury can help a team. We saw it with UConn when Donovan Clingan got hurt. Sampson came in and got a lot of minutes. He played really well, and now they kind of have 2 big men that they can rely on. Same thing with Duke when they lost Tyrese Proctor. He's not playing like he should be. He's hurt, but when he went out, Mark Mitchell and Jeremy Roach and Jared McCain, they kind of stepped into a role that they didn't know that they didn't believe they could step in and be that guy for Duke. Now with Tyrese Proctor coming back, they've continued scoring. Proctor hasn't been scoring. He will end up scoring. He's a great player, but I think it's all going to mesh together, and this Duke team's going to be scary come March. Game of the day at 3 o'clock. Number 4 Marquette at number 1 UConn. This game's on Fox. UConn favored by 7 via KenPom. What a game! Top 4 matchup. I'm taking Marquette to cover the 7 in this game. I think that's too much. This is going to be a fun watch. I think this game is going to be back and forth. It's going to be a nail biter the entire way. I cannot wait for this matchup. Everyone tune in at 3 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, we have another great matchup, another ranked on ranked matchup. Number 6, Kansas visits number 25, Oklahoma. This game's on ESPN. Oklahoma favored by 1 via KenPom. We'll have to see if Kevin McCullough is going to be able to give it a go. Kansas did beat Oklahoma earlier in the year, but Kansas has struggled on the road, yet they rarely lose back-to-back games with Bill Self. It's a game I would stay away from. Just wait till you see if Kevin McCullough is playing. If Kevin McCullough is playing, I would probably take Kansas. If Kevin McCullough is not playing, I would without a doubt take Oklahoma because Kansas has zero depth. Zero depth. Let's move on to 5:30 on Fox. Number 14, Illinois visits Maryland. Illinois favored by 3 via KenPom. Maryland's still a little bit in the hunt. If they can pick up this win over Illinois and then beat Northwestern later, they have a slight chance. They're kind of higher up at in the net. You never know. I gave them like a 10% chance. That's probably too generous. But fun matchup in this game. It's Terrence Shannon versus Jameer Young, two lefties, two guys that can just absolutely score, can absolutely fly. This will be a fun matchup. I encourage everyone to tune in there. Out of the Mountain West, also at 5:30, Utah State visits Colorado State on CBS Sports Network. Colorado State is favored by 3 via KenPom. An interesting one here. They're favored by 3, which is a fourth of the amount of points they scored in the second half against San Diego State. So this is an interesting one. I have Utah State winning the conference. For this reason, I'll probably take Utah State to cover the 3 in this game. At 6 o'clock, another ranked on ranked matchup. Number 22 Kentucky at number 13 Auburn. This game's on ESPN. And what if I were to tell you Kentucky is getting 10 points? Auburn favored by 10 via KenPom. That's outrageous. With that being said, I think I'm taking Auburn to cover the 10 in this game. I can't believe I'm saying it. That is so many points to give John Calipari and Kentucky, that talented Kentucky team. Yet they don't have anyone who can guard Jonai Broom. They don't have anyone that can guard Jalen Williams. Jonai Broom is going to go down low. They have Onienso, who's been pretty solid, but Aaron Bradshaw and Vladimir Ivicic, what don't hold me to that name. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I know it's something Ivicic, but they are probably the two worst defenders in the SEC who gets regular minutes. I mean, they can score the ball. They're great offensive players, but they are horrible on defense. They're just going to wear down Onienso. I think Auburn covers 10 in this game. I can't believe I'm saying that. We'll see how it goes. At 8 o'clock, a rivalry game. Michigan State visits Michigan on Fox. Michigan State favored by 6 via KenPom. Juwan Howard might need this one. With the loss of Chris Holtmann at Ohio State, he may need to win this rivalry game to even coach the next game. We'll see how it goes there. They do have Doug McDaniel at home, so this should be a fun matchup to watch. But I think they're too undisciplined. I think Michigan State covers the 6. Let's give some mid-major love. 8 o'clock, Yale at Princeton. Two teams battling for the Ivy League on ESPN2. Good for ESPN2 for getting this mid-major game. Princeton favored by 5 via KenPom. Yale beat them earlier in the year. It was a close game. I think Princeton wins this time. I don't know if they cover 5, but I'll take them just because I think they're going to win the game. I'll take Princeton to cover the 5. 2 games on Sunday. 12 o'clock, number 24 FAU at USF. FAU favored by 4 via KenPom. Now, why this game? USF is leading the American right now. You might not know that. It's Amir Abdur-Rahim has done a great job there. And they get FAU at home. FAU's the powerhouse of the AAC right now, and they get to get them at home. We'll see. Should be a fun matchup. FAU is so inconsistent. I mean, we saw them struggle with Wichita State, and USF is better than Wichita State, but I have a feeling this might be the game that FAU turns on the Jets, and they just wear down USF. They're not USF's in the hundreds in the net. But they're 10-1 in the conference. I'll take FAU to cover the 4. We'll see how it goes. Last game we're going to talk about at 1 o'clock on CBS. Number 2 Purdue at Ohio State. Purdue favored by 9 via KenPom. First game without Chris Holtmann. Rename the arena. Rename the shot the Jake Diebler Arena if he can pull off this win. What do you get? You get an interim head coach in his first duty. He has to take on Zach Edey and Purdue. Yikes. I will be at this game. I will be watching closely. Purdue, probably the best team, the best resume in the country, maybe the best team, them or UConn, visiting Jake Diebler in Ohio State. Can he pull it off? I'll be there. I'll be reporting live. We'll see how it goes. That's it for our Sweet 16. That's it for our show. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. Hopefully you got a little bit of a head start on who may be the Ohio State coach, who may be the favorite in some of these games, who you're going to take in the betting lines. We'll see. We'll see how this weekend goes. Been cold the last couple weeks. Need a couple wins. We'll see how it goes going forward. Very excited to go to Ohio State and see that Purdue game. Very excited. That's it. Thanks again for tuning in. Everyone check out our Instagram and Twitter at Bracket Science, 2 S's. Almost up 2,000 followers on Instagram. Thanks everyone for that. Also on Facebook, Bracket Science, 2 words. We're going to post our bracketology tomorrow after those top 16 rankings come out, and then we'll go from there. Thanks again. Like and comment while you're here. Have a nice day. See you later.